Okay, so staining. Okay, all staining you can min-wax. You can buy sheets, so it's just it's already, you just wipe it, so you don't. It's a little more expensive, but it just takes away having to open this stuff up. Staining and inking are very similar. You're going to take a piece of material. We're going to wipe the stain. The longer we let it sit on the body, the longer it will soak in. Does that make sense? So if we take this body, I just dip it in the stain, pour it in and wipe it. The longer I let it sit, it will, you got to be careful. You can get a little blotchiness if you like put a little thicker here and not here. Stains, you can, like this is, I will point out, this coloration on this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to show up that well on this, depending on what wood you have, right? This also, when you stain, you're going to show this has a grain this way, this one's grain's going this way, this, and you can see there's 3 different thicknesses of grains here, so it's, they're going to show up more, and you actually see it on this one that this girl stained. So the staining here, see how it pops all the grains out, because this gets a little darker than this, and okay.
So just wait, so the longer it sits, the darker it's gonna go.
Yeah, well,
so
you're,
what does that mean? Am I gonna wipe off the stain?
yeah, what you're gonna do is, you'll see it with ink. You just put on, we wipe it, right? But if you wipe it off, if you want it darker, leave it on longer, and you can actually do more coats because it's sucking it in. Okay. You can always sand too, right? So you can do it and go, oh, and you'll see the sunburst effect. See how she did that, right? This effect on, this is inking, but this is the same concept. See how she got a sunburst effect? So she got it's lighter in the middle, darker on the outside. How she did that was the whole guitar was done with a lighter ink or a lighter stain. Then you can do the whole guitar, then you do the outer edges. Does that make sense? So with darker, or you can sand it. You could do the whole thing darker and sand the middle, and then either way. That's how you get it's called sunburst effect. With
and
painting,
it also draws your eye in, like on Robert's, where he's engraved those art pieces.
Yeah.
So like on the bottom, there's really nothing.
Yeah.
If you did the dark,
your eye, it can be, it frames it too. Yeah. It almost like a frame around your pick guard because of whatever you have. The other thing that happens too is, like, if you do it with paint, you spray it lighter color. Like, so I'll show you an AC/DC one, and the kid did bright yellow in the, I think orange in the middle, bright yellow, then an orange, then a red, then a black. But he did it from inside out. So, and when you're done, it's a starburst.
Yeah, this is one I'm doing.
Oh yeah. You can see. So how it has. Hey, one of you come here. Walk around. Oh, I just wanted them to see it. Walk around. Don't drop his phone, and show it to them. I'm going to show you picture samples of all this too, but I just wanted you to understand that I'm not going to demo doing a stained guitar because we're going to do ink, which is very similar to staining. So you can get black stain too, like ebony stain. You can get every color. I just want to warn you, the color on this doesn't necessarily mean what's going to come out on the guitar, because this will say, oh, golden oak. Well, if you have an oak-based guitar, okay, it's going to be close. But if the guitar is a weird oakum it's not going to. But also, they're all going to have a yellowish sheen. If you're trying to get it's just going to add a yellowish to it between this and then we add the coat to it. But it makes it kind of look more golden. Are we good with that? Are we comfortable? Am I getting you understanding that? By the way, there's videos of this and everything. All right. Now we're going to talk about ink, and we're actually I'm going to demo some inking. Okay. Inking, you don't need fancy ink. This is just like all-purpose black ink. This is just inking from the art teacher. This is blue. This is black from Staples. Okay, you can get fancier. So you can go to Hobby Lobby and it's
just called ink.
It's just ink. It's inking. Or you can do dyes, like cloth dyes and stuff. It's a little bit, I like this stuff. The dyes get a little bit more blotchy, a little bit more finicky, but you can. This is just rolled for your rolling stamp pads. This is, so the ink it's not fancy specialty ink. Does that make sense? A little tubs of some sort. These are all from HelloFresh. Just we had some of the teachers save these and give these to me, so I have little covers to mix our ink in. So we'll just put our black ink, and then we can add water to dilute it or not. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, you want gloves. Okay,
Yeah.
because what will happen is you're gonna have ink all over you. I'm gonna put gloves on. And warning, don't wear your best Sunday shirts. Like I used to wear dress shirts and my wife told me, will you stop? And I'm like, why? Well, every time I come home, you have paint here, you have paint here, you know. So that's why I don't wear. But so some sort of gloves, just so you know, they will get ink. So you gotta, I have grabbed some junk drop cloths, something to cover because they will get ink everywhere, paint everywhere. I also have like paper. I have just cardboard paper, like rolls of it that our teacher has. All right. Does that make sense so far? All right. For ink, we have different choices, right? Different tubs. We can put it in there to wipe it down. She just did this with acrylic. I bought this set from Amazon. I put that in the link, but it has totally different colors of it. She just used it. What'd you find? Was it easy to use? Was it?
It's kind of a little bit of both. The mixing is a little harder, but it has to be like wet when you're mixing, but if it dries quickly. So
I'm just gonna do black, okay? Just so now, did you see she tested? Okay, the only caveat is she did testing on this piece of wood. It might not such be the same material, but see how she was testing out her sunburst. So she did a red, she did a green, and this was all from these. I do find I've had this yellow for 3 years. So like you don't use a lot of it, depending on what you're trying to do, but you're not using a lot of it. So black. So we're gonna take it. All I'm doing is opening up the black. I'm pouring it in. So this is just black ink. If I want to dilute it, I want this to be black, so I'm gonna just leave it dark. But if I wanted to dilute it, I could put water. So if you want light blue, you can put blue in a little bit and then just put water and dilute it. Yeah.
They sell stains specifically for musical instruments.
Yeah.
Which is what's all over my hand.
Yeah. You guys get that? Okay. I say this is like this was left over from art. So like they were gonna throw it in, so I'll just use it. Does that make sense? But just realize that it's the same concept whether you use whatever the thing you buy for ink or for dye, it's gonna be the same thing. So she's gonna take a rag.
So could you use acrylic paint mixed with like dye?
These are acrylic things. Right
Okay,
here.
you mix them with water.
I would be yes, the acrylics. I just would be kind of what you're trying to do. You're gonna have to seal that when you're done though, if you're doing, because like my skateboards, those are all acrylic. When we're done, we let it dry. I'll show you the clear spray, but we spray them, then we poly them so that the acrylic stays. If not, sometimes if you don't want it rough muted, she found with her guitar with this inking, you've got to think about see the edges. Like if you don't want to see the edges, she had to do it. You did the brightest color first, then
edge actually.
Oh, she did the edge in dark, and then so if you're trying to blend, some inks work better. The acrylics didn't work as bad as that. That stuff blends a lot better, like regular inks, than the acrylic inks. Does that make sense? Because you can, and when it's wet is when you're trying to blend it. If you put the yellow down and you let it dry, and then you come back, what you could do is you do this whole thing in the yellow color, let it dry. Then you come back and mix a yellow black that's this area, blend it, and then you end your black, and then you go back over and just kind of blend. You guys get that? Yeah.
The sequence should be lighter to darker.
Yeah. Does that make sense? The light is coloring the darker. Does that make sense? The light is coloring the darker. See, light colors dark colors can cover light, not the other way. Okay, so she's just gonna dip, and oh, did you see how we tape this? Okay, because you don't want this on this there. You'll see the fretboard, so you just take the tape and seal it right straight down. Kids, their tape jobs will be horrible, just so you know. But if they follow that line and do little pieces, and then they just cover the top. Also, you got to get them to understand they have to cover the nut because they won't. So like they'll have black all over the nut. You see that? They didn't cover that nut and it's all covered black. Now we can scrape that and clean it up. It's not a big deal, but just realize that.
Just extra work.
It's just extra work, right? The more you do. Also, how you tape, this is dipped, and I'll explain that. if we put ink and we leave this there, when we pull up, I'll have that happen there. Could be all done and there'll be a piece of uninked thing. Okay, so I'll let you, so she's gonna demo. So she dips it in and she just wipes it down and you'll see it go. You don't have to do, but I have them do the whole thing. Does that make sense? And see how it's getting, it's darker later. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. You can do that. Sit, come over here, show it. There you go. We good? So she's just wiping it down and she'll go through the whole thing. And then she can let it, and she'll let it dry. The biggest things kids have a hard time is they think they're going to do it all at once. They think I'm going to paint it all at once. I'm going to stain it all at once. Like, no, stain it, let it dry. Especially is we can fill in the gaps and she'll just go up and down the whole thing and that's inking. Does that make sense? Now you can get fancier with inking. We can do the sunburst effect, mixing colors, things like kids will want to do that. You saw the painting, the kid had the multiple paint. Kids will want to do that. I don't care, but just realize it. And the problem is it will look different every time, which by the way, that's the good thing. The point of this is to not have a guitar that looks exactly like everyone else's guitar. You can go buy that. You can go buy a red Fender. You can go buy a blue Gibson. You can go buy, let's make something that's yours. Because that also, if they do that, they'll keep that guitar a lot longer than if it's just one they buy the parts to. I'm going to keep that one I built forever, even though, you know, I play it. I play my Gibson and that one just about equal. But that makes sense. By the way, can you see how you can see the wood through it? That's what inking gives you that you don't get from the solid color stuff we're going to do. You don't get to see the wood. You don't get to see the stuff. The other thing too is you're not going to lose any playability by adding this stain or ink. It's going to color it, but when you coat it, you're not going to go, oh, I feel paint. Where if you paint it, you will feel paint unless you really coat it really, really well. No matter what, you're adding a layer, you're adding a thickness to it.
So a very expensive Gibson, is it not veneer?
Gibson, well, every guitar can be different.
Right.
The reason guitars get expensive is vintage guitars, when they first came out, they were trying things and they used much better wood. They used much better, everyone becomes a little unique because they were small. They were producing very little. And they were trying new things. It's like a Stradivarius violin. The wood for the time, over time aged. The same thing happens with the Gibson and stuff like that. Guitars in their body does affect them. And it's hard to get them. The professional trees. Yeah.
So it was.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Spurled? What do you call that? Well, depends.
It depends. You can have different ones. Spalted or burled or either spalt. You can put a veneer or it can be maple flame. You know, they get different wood. That's aesthetics.
Yeah.
That's not playability. There's on Amazon. There's a whole thing on electric
Well,
guitars.
there's a sound quality too that's different.
Yeah.
You know, the look and
the
playability, but then there's...
Yeah, and I will point out electric is different than acoustic with the wood Bosch. Acoustic's another whole level, but also electric. The body does this shape is a little different, and a hollow changes the sound. Also structurally, how it's held onto the guitar. When we're done, you'll see we'll bolt it and stuff. Some are bolted. That Gibson style that you see there, that blue one, that's glued. The neck is glued. That's good and bad. Each has their advantage and disadvantage. If you want to know about shapes in guitars, Amazon has a Kevin Bacon host it. It's a whole guitar thing that goes through all the different guitars. It's kind of a neat thing to watch. And it talks, really, there's two things that happen with guitars. It's the different styles, the looks, but in those looks, there's usually some thing that they did to the guitar. Like now they're doing carbon fiber guitars, or the earlier ones having humbuckers. These are wound pickups versus square pickups. And then also how you wind them. Seymour Duncan, it's like older pickups are totally different how they sound than today. Also, to be honest, a artificial CNC, it's a better guitar. It's all perfect, but there's no hand to it. So unique that's what these are. You're making unique to a point. Good.
And on that stock, if she wanted to, she could take a dry cloth. And
Yeah.
wipe
She
on the
can just
bottom
take this
and-
when you're done,
and
wipe
make
it to get any
lighter, so
splotting.
she could transition
And
too,
you can
right?
see we just went and took it and we hung it. Didn't take very long. You will see it's not perfectly black though, right? You can see how it's like that. Still see it. We'll let this dry. If we want it darker, we'll throw another coat of black ink on it. Okay, does that make sense? Now, it's got to dry today though. I'm going to show you poly and how to coat it. We're not grabbing the true oil and doing it right now because you'll have a true, it'll be black when you're done. I will also, when we're done, no matter how good you are, remember we talked about throwing water to bring the sanding up. If we go and do this, that will bring out the grain on that neck a little bit. So we'll steel wool it to knock it back down a little bit before we put a coat on. We good? Comfortable? All right. Anybody need, and you can take a break anytime. All right. That's inking, okay, or staining or dyeing. And I can't tell you all the different ways. If you go YouTube, people, and you can Google everything. Go, I want to try this. This is how I figured this out from YouTube. And there's 5 million versions. And you can see, even in what she did, see the different choices, just that alone. And just solid color versus light, it's you can do some cool things. Veneers will pop out differently than others. Again, depending what you want to do.